All right, hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar, Our Security Delivered Your Way, Simplified Management. My name is Jenna Kadich. I am a product marketing specialist at WatchGuard Technologies, and today I'm joined by two fellow WatchGuardians, Himanshu Verma, Director of Product Management, as well as Bryce Yalseth, Partner Marketing Manager. Now, this is the second webinar in our ongoing MSSP series. But if you missed the first webinar, don't panic. It's available on demand on WatchGuard.com, as well as on our Bright Talk channel, Network Security Community by WatchGuard. Now, we've got some great content to share with you guys today. But before I hand things over to Bryce and Himanshu, I do just have a few quick housekeeping notes. Now, guys, during the webinar, if you have a question at any point, please be sure to let us know. Just type your question into the Bright Talk questions panel, and we will address it at the end of the presentation. Now, be sure to check out the attachments tab for some great resources, including an ebook around WatchGuard's MSSP program, as well as the PowerPoint deck that we'll be using during the presentation today. And then following the webinar, the recording, as well as, again, the PowerPoint deck will be made available on Bright Talk within about an hour after the broadcast completion. So that's all I have on mind of things. And with that said, I will hand it over to Bryce.
Thank you, Jenna, and welcome, everyone. So much of what we do here at WatchGuard from a partner enablement standpoint is for our managed security service providers, who represent really a large percentage of our channel base. We really focus on providing all the tools and resources needed so that MSSPs not only provide leading IT security solutions, but are really able to provide value-added services that are scalable across a wide range of use cases. That includes everything from a customer needing specific support to supplement their in-house IT team, all the way to providing end-to-end IT security management as an outsourced solution. For today's installment and the next two episodes in this four-part webinar series, we're focusing on the different types of value-added services you can provide as an MSSP. We'll talk about industry trends, challenges, and solutions that can extend your value to each customer and really create new streams of recurring revenue for your business. Today, though, is all about peer management services, including deployments, ongoing maintenance, and security upgrades. You'll learn how you can offer these services and how they can be delivered in a way that simplifies the process on your end. In the next two episodes, we will focus on protection services that includes prevention, detection, and response. And then we'll wrap up the series with an episode all about visibility, such as remote monitoring and the different types of reporting services you can provide to customers. To kick things off here today, Himanshu is going to talk about what customers are looking for from an MSSP and some trends that are driving growth in this market. Over to you, Himanshu.
Thanks, Bryce. Welcome, everyone, to our second session here. In the first session, you guys heard from our industry specialist, Tim Lowe, on how to make more profits on your ongoing businesses. I think today we're going to focus on the first category of management services that you can provide, which is all about simplified management. Before I jump into what WatchGuard can offer to our partners to provide simplified management to their customers, we wanted to kind of highlight on some of the industry trends as well. And this is a report from IDC, which was published last year, around what customers and the CIOs are really looking for. I think you've heard us mention before, and even in the previous webinar series where we mentioned that SMBs and small, medium businesses continue to struggle when it comes to addressing security. And one of the main reasons there is the ongoing complexity of technology. And this involves not only more and more solutions, but also the varying buying conditions that continue to evolve. As you know, the IT infrastructure is getting more complex. It's getting easier with things moving to the cloud, but also it's bringing in more complexity into the environment. And I think that's an ongoing trend that the SMBs have a problem addressing. Because of that, there's loads of security issues that are getting created around not having proper visibility, not having proper vendor management, not having proper relationships when it comes to managing costs. So most of these CIOs are actually looking forward to addressing those problems by partnering with a managed security service provider. Another trend that was published in the IDC report last year was just a survey around who all is currently engaged with a managed service provider and or is actively looking to engage with a managed service provider. So you'll see the top list where a large percentage of the respondents actually said they're either actually actively looking to engage with a partner or they're actually already working with somebody who's providing managed services. Also, the important factor here is in the next 12 months, they do plan to engage with an MSSP partner. And again, this is an important indicator here, especially for phones on the call, because this is a pure opportunity for our partners to actually go and deliver managed security services to the customers. Now let's take a look at what does a managed security delivery lifecycle looks like. And again, I'm putting myself into the shoes of our partners and now indicating that if they were to provide a good security service to our customers, some of the things that include, number one, is dealing with a lot of vendors. The more vendors you have, the more management headache it costs for the MSSP partners. But that's where the MSSP partners add value. They come in and they take multiple solutions of multiple categories to address various security needs to build a solution offering around that. And these solutions are primarily focused on starting from doing initial assessment, which might include strategic planning, vulnerability assessment, or penetration tests, and finding some of the reports that the customer might not be aware of to actually move them into a sales cycle. Again, when it comes to addressing security needs, one of the important tasks is deploying integrations and implementations. And this includes, again, bringing cohesively all the various blocks of security, whether it's network, whether it's endpoint, whether it's applications, whether it's voice over IP infrastructures or communication infrastructures, and then again building a whole solution around that. And then additionally, also education is an important part of that offering, where they want to make sure that their customers are well trained and educated on how to follow good security practices in their environments. And this is where a managed lifecycle kind of like forms around what our partners offer when it comes to providing managed services to the customers.
Hey, Mantra, maybe we can elaborate on the biggest complexity or challenge that you see for MSSPs within this model. Yeah,
absolutely. And that ties into our next message here. What's important here is the cost of management. And what I want to highlight here is not just the cost of management when it comes to the service provider and the customer, but what we really want to highlight here today is the cost of management when it comes to the relationship between vendor and service provider. And as I highlighted, since there are multiple vendors involved in a managed security suite that a partner needs to build, that cost of management is primarily the burden of the partner. So how does that cost of management get addressed? And before we actually go into that, let's look at what are the different types of these costs. Most of the total cost of ownership around management of security solutions is tied into two different costs: hard costs as well as soft costs. And these are industry terms. Hard costs is stuff that you spend out of your pocket as cash related to procurement. You're buying products and services directly from a vendor, and then you have to train people and you have to hire more staff to actually be able to provide some managed security services. Those are what we consider as hard costs. Then there are obviously soft costs, or also known as in the industry as hidden costs. Not something that is directly tangible, but then it adds up over the period of time. And these are mainly around, things where you have a software now, or you have a product now, and you want to install it, and you want to deploy it. How much time are you spending on configuring it? How much time are you spending on ongoing maintenance of that software? Then how much time and energy are you spending on training your people on how to upgrade and how to update that piece of software? These are all intrinsic costs which are not directly visible, but then you have to factor those in when you're building a managed security service practice around your vendor. Some of the other soft costs are around, on-site travel and commute. If you have a piece of product or if you have a service and you need a continuous touch point with your customers and your employees are traveling constantly, I think that to me adds to the soft costs. And then if there is a problem or there's an issue, there's a service desk ticket, obviously, and then somebody has to go in and manually remediate those things without any automation. That again adds to some of these soft costs. So I think that's the cost model where we want to highlight and focus on that how partners can evaluate some of these vendor solutions and make sure that when they are providing a managed security service suite around the products that they get from multiple vendors, some of the things that they should take into consideration and how they can build a good checklist to provide what we are calling simplified management. So just to highlight the three main things that we see partners providing to their customers as part of an MSSP practice, which are mainly tied to management, are around the initial deployment and installation. It all starts with getting the product and a service from a vendor, integrating that into your managed security services, and then being able to effectively install, deploy, and set it up at the customer site. So I think that to us is one of the most important aspects. The second one is around remote policy management, which basically means that the customer does not want to get involved in managing and configuring their security configurations. As we've highlighted, most of these SMB customers are not even aware, what some of these security services stand for or what they are actually adding benefit for. For them, all that matters is that there are no threats inbound and then their costs are in check. So again, remote policy management, which is the ongoing maintenance, is very important. And there used to be a culture where, you can set it and forget it. I think that's something which is no longer valid in the security world. I think we've seen with ongoing threats and evolving threats, there are management aspects and policies that need to be updated on an ongoing basis, or at least reviewed and revamped as we go on. And finally, it's upgrades and maintenance. I think most of our partners here, and especially somebody who's providing IT services, is not new to patch management, is not new to security updates that are available, and I think that's why patches and updates are critical, especially in the security industry. And I think upgrades and maintenance is another important aspect that we see as an offering as part of the management or simplified management portfolio when it comes to providing these managed services to customers.
All right, so we're going to take a second here and do a polling question. You'll see it pop up on your screen here. And we're asking, how do you typically deploy security solutions for your customers? Is it something that you're doing completely remote from office, from another location? Is it partially remote, partway at the customer's location? Or are you completely doing it on-site with technical resources needed?
Yeah, and I think here, again, the focus is, you guys should be taking into consideration both software as well as hardware solutions. Most software solutions can be deployed seamlessly. Hardware solutions usually require, somebody to go on site, do some installation activities. So this is just a general question to gain and understand how some of you guys might be doing these practices today.
We'll give it just about 30 more seconds or so as we gather some answers here.
Okay, it looks like the answers are coming in, and they're heavily weighted around partially remote. And then the second weightage is around on-site with technical resources. So I think that's a good indicator, and especially when it comes to involving hardware resources, there is definitely today perceived a notion that somebody needs to be there on-site to be able to deploy the solutions and have some hand-holding with the customer. So we're going to move forward here, and I'm going to share some now value propositions of how this can be addressed. As you heard, the first managed service that we think about is initial deployment and initial configuration. And I think the things that are important here or should be important here when it comes to vendor and service provider relationship are how easy it is to actually deploy the solution. And the things that you should be consider is, can you efficiently deploy these solutions across multiple customers and their multiple locations without having to spend some of the soft costs of shipping an engineer with the solution? I think, especially with the case of WatchGuard's UTM security services, whether it's a physical device or a virtual device, we offer a service which is called Rapid Deploy. That service allows partners to actually be able to deploy some of these devices and the default security configurations on those devices in a fashion where there is no on-site support required. So you can basically upload a configuration in a cloud service, ship the device. When the device first connects to the internet, it calls to the cloud service, downloads that initial configuration, and is ready to go. Especially when it comes to distributed enterprises and in environments where there is one main office with multiple branch offices, or there are hundreds of small offices, you want to make sure that your soft costs are in check, where you're not spending a lot of money in shipping resources, in their travel time or travel costs, which are then adding to your managed security services cost practice. So again, when we look at simplified management, what we've been focusing on is making sure that either our partners don't have to ship somebody physically out to a location, or they have a configuration or an automation where these devices can automatically download some of the initial configurations from a service. Another important aspect is what happens when you go through the open box experience. You open the box and then you spend 2 hours in configuring the software or configuring the service. Remember, that's all adding to your soft costs. What is important is, does the vendor provide you an initial configuration or a quick start configuration? Can you check a few boxes which are easy to infer and then gain what are the security settings that you want to enable? And I think that's, again, a service or a feature that WatchGuard provides in our solutions, where partners can go in and do some quick start configurations on the security services and not have to spend a lot of time and energy and resources in checking every single configuration that they want to enable. So again, a great value add when it comes to keeping some of your soft costs in check. The second complexity, obviously, that we talked about initially was around the complexity of deployment and sizes. And this ties 2 ways. One, where it needs to scale horizontally, that is both in on-premise environments. There's a term, customer premise equipment, CPE, where your customer wants security services on premises. And then the second one is, how can you solve the flexibility of also deploying these solutions in a virtual environment? And that virtual environment could be a private cloud instance or a public cloud instance. As you know, today, the IT software landscape is actually evolving more in the virtual space as well as on the on-premise space. So there needs to be a flexibility from the vendor where you can provide these solutions in either one of them. Also, these solutions need to scale not only horizontally, but also vertically, where once you have them deployed, you can scale through as many more equipment or as many more instances that you require easily. And that's where it's very important that the vendor is able to provide you the flexibility of whether you're protecting a customer who has 5 users at one site or has 1,000 users at one site. So as I mentioned earlier, the hub and spoke model, the distributed enterprise model, or the small medium business model, you need to look at a vendor who can address these all very easily. WatchGuard's suite of security services actually provides a wide breadth of the portfolio when it comes to network security. As well as when it comes to wireless security, we can now address security needs both indoors as well as outdoors. In addition to that, we also have virtual appliances that can be deployed both in private as well as public cloud environments, which again gives a lot of flexibility when it comes to the deployment and sizes of providing security services. And remember, it's all about the management here. If you can manage security both on-premise as well as in virtual environments, or you can manage security when it comes to both indoor and outdoor premises, I think that's a real value add that helps to keep your management costs in check. Next, let's focus on some of the management-related functions when it comes to configuration and policy management. Remember, I mentioned it's very important to address multiple locations, and it's also important to see that you're not adding to your total cost of management by shipping people to all these locations. So this is where, again, in a true MSSP model, it's important that you are able to centrally manage your security needs. And when it comes to being able to centrally manage security needs, what that means is you're able to deploy some of these policy configurations from one central location without having to go and visit each location every time. Not only that, you're also able to easily repeat some of these configurations for some of these multiple sites very easily. And I think that's where, again, a lot of value add comes from the management software or the configuration software or the configuration service that is provided by the vendor, where are you able to create quote-unquote templates? Are you able to deploy those templates in multiple locations? Are you able to add some sort of audit and logging as to who's coming in and what changes are being made? Because remember, you might have multiple employees in your organization, and somebody comes in and makes a change, and if you are now investing in another resource or another audit software that needs to tell you who's making changes and who's doing what, that's an added cost to your management solution that you're providing to your customers. And that's exactly where a lot of value add comes in, whether it's related to initial configuration, whether it's related to being able to do automation around multiple customers and multiple sites and being able to easily repeat some of these security configurations to multiple customers, being able to do security policies and configurations in an offline fashion. And what that really means is that you're not actively connected to your customer's premises, you're not actually connected to your customer's equipment, but you can make some of these changes and then upload them either automatically or at a later time. And those are some of the things that, again, WatchGuard provides from our management solutions, which are very easy to manage.
Hey, Manju, do you see this any type of functionality as something that is normally included in an IT security solution in terms of being able to essentially manage security across multiple locations, or is this something that you see as, say, maybe achieved normally through a third party?
Yeah, that's a good question. As I mentioned, there are certain vendors who actually charge additional fees or have the service providers pay additional fees for their management solutions. And that's another area where I think you should look for vendors, especially who can provide some of these management capabilities as a true value add. And again, in the case of WatchGuard, for example, whether it's our initial deployment services, whether it's our ongoing management services, or whether it's tools that allow partners to be able to go in, make some of these policy changes, etc. These are all completely value add, especially for managed security service partners, because we value that our partners actually need these tools, so we don't want to have them add to their total cost of ownership when it comes to providing management services. Next up is configuration. And here, guys, I think it's very important to follow the three-step approach. And the reason I call it the three-step approach is because if you're not able to configure a security service or update a security services using these three simple steps, which is number one, enable it, number two, set the policy or configure it, and number three, being able to report and log on it, then that means you're adding additional cost to your managed services. And what we've provided here as WatchGuard is to actually simplify some of the advanced security services that are needed by our partners to provide effective security services to their customers in three simple steps. Most of our security services that we offer as part of our security suite can be configured by just simply enabling the option or setting a mode for that option, then taking actions or configuring policies of what needs to be done there, and then making sure that you have alerts and logs available for that, which is the end result of it. And again, in the next session, when we talk about intelligent protection, we will go into the value of most of these security services. But if you look at, again, the model of the customers that you're solving these problems for, we want to make sure that for your employees and for your resources, it's as simple as setting some of these security services as it is for the customer to consume it. So again, the 3-step model, which is enable, configure, and then report and alert on top of it. And I think that's what adds to lowering the total cost of ownership for simplified management. Another important aspect, and I talked about this, which partners should be looking to offer as a service, is ongoing upgrades. And I think ongoing upgrades should be viewed as, kind of like patch management, where you got to make sure that as time goes on and as new versions and releases come up, you are not adding to the total cost of management in the form of hard costs. That means the vendor is not charging you for, new upgrades to their software revisions or to their services that they're adding. And additionally, the factors that are involved in how long does it take to actually upgrade and deploy some of these security updates that come in, because that can again add to the time and cost.
All right, so we have another polling question here. So we want to ask a little bit of feedback from the audience. Do you offer security updates or upgrades as a managed service for your customers? Maybe it's a standalone service, maybe it's packaged in the overall offering you have for them. So yes or no.
And again, I think what we want to gain here from partners is some insight into, whether this is a practice that you already offer today to your customers. Remember, as I mentioned earlier, security updates are very critical. I mean, it's become imperative that most of these updates, even for the security software, should not be overlooked. Most of them might be for simple, defects or patch fixes, but again, they might be critical to the security services that you're providing to your customer. And that not only applies to security solutions, but also applies to IT services. So we want to gauge whether or not this is a service that you're already providing to your customers as a value add or not. And it looks like majority of you have answered yes, and there's a high percentage who's answered no. And I'll again focus on that this is an important service that partners should be looking to deliver to their customers, and how you can position this is, again, following the simplified management approach. With WatchGuard, we have one operating system that is deployed across the breadth of our portfolio, which means, I showed you the flexibility that you have around the different type of devices and the different type of models that you can deploy, both on-premise as well as off-premise. Our main goal is to make our partners' life easier so that they can provide value-added services to their customers. And that's where we have one operating system for all devices. Not to mention that update comes at no additional charge, no additional cost. So not only there are any upfront costs to it, so no hard costs. Also, we make sure that ongoing upgrades for our security services, which again, in the security world, you're very much familiar with, some of the antivirus signature updates or IPS signature updates. Some of these security services are very much dependent upon making sure that those signatures are up to date. And then again, some of our additional security services like application control, DLP and botnet are also updated and constantly updated through our automatic services. And that's where, again, the value of making sure partners don't have to worry about and spend time and resources on getting some of these services is important for us to make sure that your total cost of ownership is low. But when it comes to delivering a service to your customers, you can provide that as a value-added service to your customers and increase your recurring revenue. Another important aspect that I want to highlight on solution packaging. As I mentioned, most of the times it's very critical that these service provider partners are dealing with multiple vendors. So how easy it is to get the breadth of the portfolio from one simple packaging of a solution from one vendor as much as possible. And I think that's where we highlight in making sure that the packaging of our security services is done in a way where partners can easily come in, and whether they want, some basic security services for their customers and they want to use that in their managed services portfolio, or they want to come in and provide advanced security services and provide that in their portfolio, it's easy for them to simply come in and check that box with WatchGuard. And in some of our next sessions, you will notice how this solution packaging, again, adds value to providing intelligent protection as well. So again, our goal is to provide one platform which is able to offer total security. And again, with the mission of easier to sell, where the relationship with the vendor is absolutely easy and simple with the packaging of our solution. It's easier to deploy, whether it's on-premise solutions, whether it's virtual solutions, whether it's, network or Wi-Fi, you can come in and you can find those solutions very easy to deploy. And then the ongoing management is easier as well. That is what makes sure that our partners' total cost of management is actually staying low, whereas they can then provide value-added management services to their customers.
Hey, Mancha, maybe in addition to our own security portfolio and the functionality that enables managed security services, we all know MSSPs are working with a broader IT ecosystem, both within their own environments and their customers. One, how do you see this affecting their total cost of ownership? And then also, how can maybe a vendor help turn this to their benefit?
Absolutely. And, this will be ignorant on any vendor's part to claim that 100% of a managed service portfolio is kind of like owned by their solutions. We at WatchGuard acknowledge that most of our partners are using solutions from multiple vendors. And these solutions don't necessarily have to be in the security space, but they can be in, office and help desk space, like, professional services automation, or they are in, remote monitoring and management space, or they are in, security information and event management space, like, the SIM solutions. What becomes very important here is that if a vendor is providing a solution that makes sure that their products are integrating with some of these third-party products and are extensible so that then they behave, as a cohesive ecosystem, it again adds to the value of the total cost of management. Because imagine you have multiple products from a vendor and you need to do asset management. You have a help desk team that needs to do service help desk ticketing, and you need to be able to easily remotely manage some of these products. We ensure that we have a technology ecosystem program that is completely value-add to our partners, available out of the box at no additional charge, where we interoperate with multiple solutions, and we also provide opportunities for our partners to bundle some of these solutions and sell them as an added value to their customers. So again, that soft cost of validation, of configuration, of making sure that the two solutions work together, we take that cost on ourselves to certify these solutions and then provide it to our MSSP partners. And finally, I also want to touch on vendor relationship and vendor management. All of you guys are aware of, how businesses operate. And I think it's very important that the business relationship is taken care of in a simplified fashion as well between the vendor and the service provider. And this is where some of the program needs get highlighted. Whether or not the vendor is providing you the right product knowledge and expertise so that you can go in and train your staff without having to invest too much in hard costs, which means, are you getting devices, appliances, and security services that you can use for your internal use so that you can train your employees and resources? Are you receiving the right amount of technical support? Do you have, an expertise knowledge at the vendor site so that your resources can call them at any given point of time and receive valued support? Or if your customers need help, can the vendor jump in to help and provide that support? And finally, when it comes to management of hard costs, do you have the ability to have flexibility to manage with the vendor in a flexible pricing fashion, which means can you pay for the products and services on a recurring, ongoing basis as well? Or do you have the predictability and the ability to measure how much are you going to spend when it comes to bringing in solutions from a vendor? And I think that's where the program needs become very imperative to also adding to the simplification of management. And again, WatchGuard One has a great channel program that provides all these offerings, And especially for our MSSP partners, we provide added value by providing some of these flexible pricing options and additional benefits that our partners can use when it comes to technical support and leveraging our resources. So again, simplified management checklist. If you're a partner who are providing ease of deployment, configuration, and management to make sure lowering your costs, ability to deal with remote offices and mobile workers, ease of speed of addressing services, and simplicity of business operations, WatchGuard's making sure to ensure our products are easier to set up by our partners. We provide scalable management so that you can deploy it across multiple locations. We're also providing value-added automatic updates so that you don't have to invest time and resources around that, and then flexible pricing models so that the vendor relationship is staying in check and predictable. So again, you're getting comprehensive coverage from vendor when it comes to setting up a total security suite around multiple different environments, physical or virtual, and across multiple different entities, whether it's network, endpoints, or Wi-Fi. And then you can use our security solutions to deliver it to provide services that you are providing, like deployment, maintenance, upgrade, when it comes to simplified management. And then join us in the next 2 sessions to learn how you can also provide services like intelligent protection around prevention, detection, and response, and also actionable visibility, which is becoming more and more crucial as the complexity of the customer's environments increases with more applications and more devices around monitoring, reporting, and troubleshooting.
Well, a lot of great information, Himanshu. And before we jump into some questions from the audience here, we just want to let you know that we love the opportunity to speak with you. If you want to know about our MSP offering, how we can enable your managed security services business, kind of 2 ways you can reach out to us. One is going to www.watchguard.com, our MSSP partners page, where one, you'll find a lot more information about our program and our offerings, but also a sign up now form. Just answer a few questions, submit it, and we'll be in contact with you. Alternatively, we have an email alias, so mssp@watchguard.com. We'll route directly to our MSSP team, who will be in touch with you shortly. So please, if you have any questions regarding what you heard today, maybe in the previous webinar and upcoming webinars, please reach out to us. Back to you, Jenna.
Excellent. Thank you, Bryce and Himanshu. We do have a question that came in around selling MSP solutions. Our attendee asked, I would love some help on how to sell our WatchGuard suite of appliances to clients who have moved entirely to the cloud, who maybe feel like they don't need on-site security appliances.
Yeah, I think, there is a little bit of hype cycle there. If you look at, again, what is called the decentralization of the perimeter, so on, there are security solutions that will continue to interface on-premise or with resources on-premise. So the IT infrastructure might have moved into the cloud, but when it comes to interacting with applications, we do see customer needs being satisfied by having a network resource. Remember, it's all about what travels or traverses through the network. So WatchGuard does provide some of the virtual security offerings as well. If there are decentralized environments where the security has now moved into the cloud, we do provide cloud security solutions that can be offered and deployed entirely into virtual environments. But then you also need to factor into, whether or not there are applications that still communicate in a private network or not, right? I think that's where, again, it's important to use our solutions and security services that scale both on-premise as well as off-premise.
Excellent. Thank you, Himanshu. Huge thanks to our presenters, Himanshu and Bryce, for all of the great information today, as well as a big thanks to our attendees for joining us. If you'd like to review this webinar recording at any point, or maybe download the PowerPoint deck that Himanshu and Bryce used today, just visit our Bright Talk channel, Network Security Community by WatchGuard. Additionally, please be sure to sign up for the next installment of this webinar series, Intelligent Protection, which will air on November 9th at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. All right, guys, thank you again for your time today, and we will see you for the next installment of the MSSP webinar series. Thank you.